Emily walked into work on a Tuesday morning the same way she had walked in for 3 years. Same desk, same coffee, same login sequence. Everything looked identical to the Tuesday before it and the Tuesday before that, but something was different. She could feel it before she could name it. Her manager walked past her without the usual acknowledgement. A meeting appeared on the shared calendar, one she would normally have been included in with every name on the team except hers. She checked her email. Nothing unusual. She told herself it was a bad day. She told herself she was overthinking. She was not overthinking. What Emily did not know, what almost nobody knows until it is too late, is that she was already inside a process. A deliberate, documented, organizationally sanctioned process that companies use when they have decided an employee needs to go, but do not want to absorb the cost and legal exposure of firing them directly. The process has a name. It is called quiet firing, and the reason it works so consistently on so many people in so many organizations is that it is designed to be felt before it can be seen. By the time you can name what is happening, it has usually been running for weeks. My name is Zara, and today I will be showing you 5 tactics companies use. Emily had been inside it for 6. This video names the tactics precisely, not the dramatic ones, the performance improvement plan, the formal warning, the HR meeting nobody misreads, the subtle ones. The ones that arrive looking like oversight, like organizational change, like nothing in particular. The ones that work because they are so easy to explain away until suddenly they are not. If you have felt something shift at work without being able to name what shifted, this is the framework you were not given. Tactic number 1. The meeting that happens without you. Emily noticed it first as a calendar anomaly. A standing meeting she had always attended had been moved. The new invite went to everyone on her team. Her name was not on it. When she asked, her manager said it had been an oversight. The next week, it happened again. Different meetings, same explanation. By the 3rd week, she had stopped asking. She had started watching instead. Here is what is actually happening when you are systematically excluded from meetings you should be in. The organization is rehearsing your absence. Every meeting that runs without you is a data point. The team unconsciously absorbs evidence that the work continues, that decisions get made, that nothing essential stops when you are not in the room. By the time you are gone, your departure will not feel like a disruption. It will feel like the completion of something that had already begun. The exclusion serves a second function that is more personal and more calculated. Isolation is demoralizing in a way that is difficult to document and impossible to argue against. When you are removed from the conversations that shape the work, you begin to feel irrelevant. You begin to wonder if you ever mattered. And people who feel irrelevant make one of 2 moves. They work harder to prove themselves, burning energy on an effort that will not change the outcome, or they start to disengage, which gives the organization exactly the performance data it needs to justify what it has already decided. Here are 3 signs the exclusion is deliberate and not accidental. First, it is selective. You are missing from meetings where your function should be represented, not from meetings that genuinely do not require you. Second, the explanations shift each time. Oversight becomes workload management becomes restructuring. The reason changes because there is no real reason. Third, you notice the decisions made in those meetings begin to affect your work directly, except you are learning about them after the fact rather than helping to shape them. They are not forgetting to invite you, they are practicing without you. Tactic number 2. The work that quietly disappears. 3 months before Emily understood what was happening, her project load began to change. It did not empty overnight. It thinned. A project she had been leading was reassigned to a colleague. Her manager explained there had been a client request for continuity, and the colleague had more history with the account. A responsibility she had held for 2 years was folded into another role. The explanation was efficiency, streamlining, nothing personal. The work that remained on her plate was real but smaller, narrower. The kind of work that does not build a profile, does not require her specific capability, does not put her name in front of anyone who matters. She told herself she was being given space to breathe. She was being erased. Here is the mechanism. When a company has decided to move someone out, it faces a practical problem. It cannot simply stop paying them while they are still employed. What it can do is begin redistributing their responsibilities, testing whether the function can be absorbed elsewhere, whether the role is truly necessary. building the organizational case that the position itself is redundant. Every responsibility that moves away from you is a piece of evidence being assembled without your knowledge for a conclusion that has already been reached. The cruelest dimension of this tactic is what it does to your sense of professional identity. You built those responsibilities. You earned them through performance and reliability and time. Watching them move to someone else, watching someone else receive the credit and the visibility that used to be yours, is a specific kind of professional grief that nobody names and nobody validates, because officially nothing bad has happened. Here are 3 signs your workload reduction is a tactic and not a gift. First, the work that is leaving is the high visibility work, the projects that put your name in front of leadership, that demonstrate your capability at the level above your current role. What remains is operational, routine, invisible. Second, the colleagues absorbing your work are being developed by it in ways you can observe their profiles are rising as yours levels. Third, when you ask for new responsibilities or raise your hand for projects, the response is vague. There is always a reason it is not quite the right fit, not quite the right timing. When your work disappears, your role is being tested for redundancy. The test has already begun. You are just not aware you are being evaluated. Tactic number 3. The feedback that was never about improvement. Emily's manager began scheduling more frequent check-ins around the same time the meeting exclusions began. She interpreted this as engagement. She was wrong. The check-ins were documentation sessions. Every conversation produced a follow-up email from her manager summarizing what had been discussed, noting the areas that required development, creating a written record of a performance narrative that was being built in one direction. The feedback itself was not false. Some of it was accurate. But the framing, the consistency, the formality, the paper trail accumulating in HR's system had nothing to do with helping Emily improve. It had everything to do with building a case that the organization had tried. This is the mechanism behind sudden, intense feedback after a period of relative calm. Organizations cannot terminate employees without documentation. When the decision to move someone out has been made, the documentation process begins, and it requires a paper trail that shows the employee was told, was given the opportunity to improve, and did not. The feedback is not designed to change your trajectory. It is designed to justify a conclusion that preceded it. Here are 3 signs the feedback is tactical rather than developmental. First, the timing is recent and sudden. You have not changed significantly, but the volume and formality of feedback has increased sharply. Second, the feedback focuses on behaviors that are difficult to measure and impossible to definitively demonstrate improvement on: communication style, cultural fit, attitude. These are not performance metrics. They are subjective characterizations that can always be maintained regardless of what you do. Third, the feedback arrives in writing consistently emails, meeting summaries, formal notes in a way that was not true 6 months ago. They are not trying to develop you. They are building a file that will explain to you. Tactic number 4. The performance improvement plan that was never designed to be passed. If Emily reaches this stage, she will be told it is an opportunity. It is not. A performance improvement plan is the formal acknowledgement that the documentation process is complete and the organization is now in its final preparation before termination. Employment lawyers will tell you this with consistency across industries and company sizes. The overwhelming majority of employees placed on performance improvement plans do not keep their jobs. Not because they fail to improve, because the plan was never designed to measure improvement accurately. The goals are written to be vague enough that assessment remains subjective. The timeline is short enough that genuine development is structurally impossible. The metrics are controlled by the same manager who initiated the process. You are being evaluated by the person whose conclusion preceded your evaluation. Do not quit. Do not give them that. But understand clearly what the document in front of you actually is. It is a countdown with a fixed destination. The only rational response is to begin your exit on your own terms while continuing to perform professionally in the role. Document everything. Respond to every piece of feedback in writing, and use the time to move. A performance improvement plan is an announcement. The only question it leaves open is whether you will be ready when it concludes. Tactic number 5. The silence that precedes the ending. In the final weeks before Emily's exit conversation, the workplace changed in a way she could feel physically. Colleagues who had been warm became carefully neutral. Her manager's responses were shortened. The social texture of the office, the informal exchanges, the ambient connection of a team that works together contracted around her until she was functionally alone inside a room full of people she had known for 3 years. She had not done anything to cause it. Something had simply been communicated through the informal network that had not yet been communicated to her. This is the last tactic because it is the last stage. When the social environment becomes hostile enough, most people make the decision the organization needs them to make. They leave. And when they leave voluntarily, the organization escapes the unemployment claim, the severance calculation, the legal exposure of a formal termination. The silence is not a byproduct of the process. It is the final mechanism. The environment is being made uncomfortable enough that your departure becomes your own choice. Do not make that choice. Stay professional, stay present. And document the isolation the same way you document everything else, because a hostile work environment created deliberately and systematically has its own legal significance. Here is what Emily eventually understood, and what you need to understand now. None of these tactics require a bad manager or a cruel organization. They are simply what rational institutional actors do when they have made a decision and need to manage the cost and exposure of executing it. The company is not your enemy. It is a system operating in its own interest, and a system operating in its own interest will not tell you when it has decided your time there is ending. It will simply begin behaving differently and wait to see if you notice. Now you notice. Document everything. Stay professional. Begin your exit before they finalize theirs, and do not let the silence, the exclusion, the shrinking workload convince you that you are the problem. You are not the problem. You are simply inside a process that was never explained to you. It is being explained now. If this channel is the place where you finally get the language for what you have been living through, subscribe right now. This is exactly what we do here. Every video, without the noise and without the false comfort. Just the mechanics, named precisely, so you can protect yourself before the process completes. Hit subscribe now. Share this with someone who has felt the shift but could not name it yet. New content drops regularly, and what is coming next is something you will not want to miss. This is Zara versus Workplace. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.